Hey guys, it's Sunray, and welcome back to the My So-Called Thoughts podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you're well wherever you are. Thank you, thank you. I'm your host, Sunray. I am a wife, mama, and musician, and of course, on this podcast, if you're new, it's exactly like what it sounds. My so-called thoughts, some of the things I'm thinking about, some of the things I feel like everyone's thinking about, dealing with, healing from, random things in society, things of my mind, things of that nature. I like to talk about it and I like to unpack it here. So thank you so much for joining me. Here we are, episode 14. Thank you so much if you tuned into last week's episode. If you didn't, please check it out. It is called Overcoming Being Hurt by the Church. It's a really personal episode, super vulnerable. I really get into the nitty gritty and tell my story. So if you know anyone that has maybe been burned by the church, has maybe fallen out of their relationship with God because the church, anything of that nature, I definitely recommend you send it to them, because not just so that they could hear my story, but so that they can know that there is hope and there is a way to come out of that and to still find your way back to God. So thank you so much if you tuned into that episode. And if you didn't, go ahead and listen to it after this. It's like 2 hours long and it's super long, but it's just because I feel like an episode like that, it just didn't make sense to put it into parts. And I just needed to kind of just talk about everything, make it one episode and be done with it and then move on to the next episode. So wherever you're listening to this, just so you know, you can stream the podcast on YouTube, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Please subscribe to your platform of choice. Leave a like, comment, review, all those type of things, especially if I talk about something or say something that resonates with you. Please let me know what you think and let me know what's on your mind and, maybe your experience or your story, your testimony. Also, be sure to follow the Instagram page. That's where I post updates and such. At My So-Called Thoughts Pod. Again, that's at My So-Called Thoughts Pod. And new episodes every Thursday around 3 p.m. Eastern when Apple Podcasts decides that it doesn't want to act silly and take forever to upload. Anyway, definitely today's episode is kind of a turn from last week. But obviously, if you've been listening to this podcast, it is not My So-Called Thoughts podcast without talking about society and without talking about things that I detest with society and things I've been thinking about. And I think it's just because we live in a world where you really have to think about this stuff now. Like social media is so big. You're always seeing things on there, always talking to different people. You're always experiencing different things in life. And, just the world we live in, I feel like there's just so much pushed into our face about society and societal norms and status quos. So I really just want to unpack that and I really want to talk about it. So obviously, by the title, is today's feminism really feminism? It's funny because as you're listening to this, like that's the title I want to call it, but I feel like I may end up changing it. So if it's something different, you're with me in real time here. But that's really the question that I at least want to, propose. And the reason, why I've been thinking about this is because obviously being a wife, being a mom, being a daughter, a sister, feminism is something that is really prominent in our culture, at least the term. And it's just really interesting how people feel different ways about it. There's also a biblical standpoint. I'm a believer if it's your first time listening. So I feel like there's so much to unpack here. And, it's definitely controversial. I said before, I feel like I'm going to get myself in trouble at some point. But, if anything, I just find the topic interesting. And whenever I find a topic interesting, as you will see, I like to talk about it and unpack it here on the podcast. I've been thinking about what it truly means to be a feminist in today's society, and it's crazy because it seems like, the term has drastically changed. And it also seems like you have to be either on one side or this other side. One side hates the other. You'll be called a woman or you'll be called a woman hater if you don't think one way. You're told you don't love women or you don't support women or you're not being, women empowering, things of that nature. If you're not praising certain ideals and stuff. And I've been thinking about this a lot, just with everything, going on in the world currently. And I've talked about, a lot of things that, women deal with, like body image. Have an episode on that. Check it out. Over-sexualization of women. Did an episode on that as well. Check that out too. But like I said, I kind of want to talk about this because it's like we live in the society where being feminist or, whatever you want to call it or however you want to define it, it's like one route. It's like, okay, if you're a feminist, then you're this. And obviously, like, you would think, well, duh, like every word has like a specific definition and you either are that or you aren't that. But I feel like because the term has changed so much, it's like, is that really feminism? If you don't have this certain belief system, and you'll be called that you aren't like woman forward if you aren't thinking a certain way, when really that may not be the whole story. You just may have a different opinion on this or that. So obviously I got to do my research whenever I'm looking into stuff like this. Also, hold on. Do not mean to stop the podcast. I don't know if you saw on the Instagram page, and this is why you should follow it, but I realized after a listener pointed out to me that the audio has only, if you're listening to it with headphones, maybe only coming in through the left ear. I think with this podcast, I fixed the issue. Again, follow the Instagram page because that's where I post updates. If it's not fixed, I'm still working on it, but I think I figured out the issue. So I do want to apologize for that. And thank you for just sticking it out. And I'm thinking maybe a lot of people aren't using it through headphones. So thank you so much to the person that told me that. And thank you so much for those that have kind of been listening, even though apparently it's going through one ear. So just wanted to put that out there really quick. Anyway, back to the podcast. So I wanted to just look up the definition of feminism because I'm like, we got to be factual here. And according to Oxford Languages Dictionary, it's the advocacy for women's rights on the basis of equality of the sexes. And of course, when you first hear that, you're like, okay, yeah, I like that. We just want equality. We just want men and women to be treated the same, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? I can support that. But then, you get on social media and you start seeing people like scream the term feminism, and it sometimes doesn't look like this at all. I will say, obviously thinking about all this, I enjoy looking into history and I want to look deeper into this. I obviously learned about it in school, but you forget that stuff that you learned in social studies in 8th grade. So I was like, let me take a deep dive, because especially when I'm going to talk about this and it's like a historical term, I want to have my stuff in check. So I was, researching again after, learning it back in school, just want to refresh my memory, early feminists of our time. And it appears that the term feminism, it was created to be like a political illustrated ideology in like the early 1900s. And of course, there were so many women feminists that came out, different activists that we know, Sergeant of Truth, Elizabeth Blackwell, others that we've heard of. And, at the time, obviously, it was mostly white women, obviously back then, and, the late 1800s and stuff, early 1900s. And then, obviously, African-American women and other women of color, of course, joined them as different things changed with laws and freedom and things of that nature, moving forward in time. And I don't want to seem like I'm giving a history lesson, but, I always got to give a backbone. I always got to lay a foundation so that it all makes sense. So I was doing research, just refreshing my memory, as I mentioned. And, when it comes to feminism, like it can even date back to, of course, the abolitionist movement, even the French Revolution and other time periods. And, back during these time periods, women, they didn't speak up in political gatherings. They would be mocked because of this. They didn't have their own organizations and stuff. And, most of these organizations for like anti-slavery and other things, they were mostly led by men. And of course, women wanted reform. They wanted to be able to be involved. They wanted to participate. They wanted to attend these, meetings about anti-slavery and things of that nature, because of course they were not able to. And years later, they were able to have their own organizations. There was the first Women's Rights Convention, which was in 1848, 300 plus women showing up and, just wanting to get involved in the cause. And, their argument and their sentiment was that all men were created equal. Like that was their argument for feminism. All men and women are created equal, and we want to just be treated equally as men. They even proposed a document that advocated for women's rights to property, better education, organizational leadership, of course, right to vote. Everyone knows about the right to vote. And, for the next several years, decades, the right to vote was the point of focus, and we all know about that. Obviously, if you're in America and you learned American history, then you know about that. I also did some other research and found that African American women, as well as other women of color, they, again, like I mentioned earlier, they were advocating alongside white women as they were advocating for their freedom. Before before slaves were freed, and to go even like specifically into different women of color, Asian women, they were focusing on fighting against like racism and sexism and classism, as were other groups of color, but that was kind of their focus. I found that. And of course, we all know that Congress in 1919 had passed, the 19th Amendment that granted women the right to vote. So, of course, there's like a little small, snippet of history in the backstory of how early feminists in America began. And, women, they obviously lacked basic rights that us women we have today. They fought for those rights for women, specifically. And their basis and sentiment was that women wanted to be equal to men. That was the cause. Women are equal to men. All men and women are created equal under the eyes of God. And again, you hear that term and you're like, okay, yeah, of course. If I want to buy a car, if a man wants to buy a car, then a woman should be able to buy a car. Or if man wants to start a business, then a woman should be able to start a business. You hear these things and you're like, okay, great, sounds good. Women should be equal to men. We agree with that cause. We believe in that cause. I'm sure most intelligent and critical thinking, able Americans, and even people all over the world, well, depending on where you live, obviously there's different cultures that believe different things. I'll just say, I'll speak for my own country. Critically thinking and intelligent Americans believe this. But again, like I feel like the term feminism, it's just drastically changed over several years, decades. I feel like the term now, like it gets thrown around. It has like some different meaning. People are attributing, the term to other things. And, I don't mean to be controversial, but it seems like feminism has morphed into this anti-man boss lady mentality, having nothing to do with equality anymore, and I was reading some articles and a lot of articles call it modern woke feminism. So let's unpack it a little bit. As I mentioned, I was doing research, found an article on Scott Scoop that said modern woke feminism, despite claiming to fight for the betterment of the female gender, is a destructive movement that has strayed away from the original motives of feminism. It has become a media hype term that nobody understands and everyone ardently supports. And I have to say, sorry, like I agree with this. Like with social media, it seems as if you're not putting men down in some type of way, or if you're not like shouting with like a bullhorn, through a bullhorn or a megaphone or something, for women, and if you're not doing that, and you're arguing that women need to be seen in whatever way, then you're not a feminist and you hate women. It's like if you're not doing it that route, then you don't love women. And it's like, oh, if a woman is running in Congress, you don't want to vote for her, when really it's like maybe you just don't align with her politically, you don't like her policies or whatever she's proposing. Oh, you don't want to vote for her, you hate women. Let's say you think that you look at a situation in a family dynamic and you see a man and a woman and they have kids and their circumstances, and you think, oh, well, maybe it would be best for her, and she believes this as well, and he believes this, and they make a family decision. You think a woman should stay home, take care of the kids, and of course it's a consensual decision. Oh, no, you hate women. You are totally not women forward. And it's crazy because what does this have to do with equality of the sexes? Like the term has clearly changed. Another quote from Scott Scoop said, an early feminist may have been a woman who was able to instill good values in her children. A 20th century feminist was one who could balance her academic and career goals with her family life. A modern feminist, however, is often portrayed by the media as a powerful unmarried woman in high heels and a skin-tight pantsuit who is able to effortlessly climb the ranks in a man's world and take their place in the workplace as well as society in general, even if that means putting everyone else in the back seat. When I read that, I was like, it's sad because this is what is being portrayed. And it's sad because a lot of people, there are people that, like myself, that don't think that that's what true feminism is. Like, nothing about that is equal. If you're putting everyone in the back seat and you're saying, well, I'm not going to get married, and obviously if you don't want to get married, please don't, but saying, oh, well, I'm not going to get married, I'm not going to do this because that means I'm not woman forward. Like, the stuff I see on Twitter, okay? The stuff I see on Twitter is just crazy how people have really just taken this term and have just flipped it upside down to the point where, it has nothing to do with equality anymore. Why does it seem like true feminism can't be the earlier viewpoints that I mentioned in that quote about how you have that mom who is an amazing wife, but she's also in school and she's doing well at work, and she's doing all this, but her focus is her children and instilling good things into them, or just whatever. It's like, why isn't that pushed? Or let's say there is a woman that started a business and her family is supporting her with that business, and she appoints her husband a CEO or something or whatever while she creates the product or whatever. Then they'll say, oh, well, you're giving the man too much power. And it's like, what? We're a family. Like, we're working together. Like, I'm doing my job and he's doing his job. So why is there an issue? How is this not feminism? If that makes sense. Like, if we're being equal, he's doing his part, I'm doing my part that I chose, and he chose this. And it's crazy because, I see all the time on like social media, Twitter, everywhere, all these people that call themselves feminists, they say, oh, well, men are trash. Women don't need men. Women just need to take over. Women just should run everything, and men should just shine our heels, kiss our feet, and just work for us. And that's it, because men are just trash, and that's it. And then they say, like, we're feminists, and if you disagree with this, then you are anti-feminist somehow. And, honestly, it's just toxic. If you think about it, in my opinion, like, society can't function without that balance of the sexes. And like, yeah, do we live in a society where men are typically the forefront? Like, yes, I'm not dismissing that by any means. But what I'm saying is that, women do have more rights than we used to have in the past. And I know that there's a lot of, well, I'll probably trickle a little bit on this later about a specific rights issue, I guess, that is going on in America right now. I'm not really going to talk about it. I'm sorry, not sorry. And I'll probably say this again later once I get to some other points that I want to talk about. But, it's not the point of this podcast. And again, I'm not going to talk about it because that specific issue needs its own avenue to talk about. And I don't know if I want to talk about it. I may or may not. So that's just not the point. But my point is that, like, we are able to vote. We are able to drive cars. We can start organizations. We can have our own bank accounts. We can buy real estate. We can run for president. We could become CEOs of companies. We can consent to this. We can consent to that as far as legalities. We can wear what we want. We can, run our own businesses. I don't know if I said that already. But we have these rights. I can wake up tomorrow morning, drive my car, go to the store, and do these things that women at one point could not do. Let's just talk about, like, it's 2022, right? Let's talk about 100 years ago, women just had obtained the right to vote. So you think about, where we've come in such a long time. I have not yet in my life, and I know this is not true for every woman, okay? I'm just talking about my experience. I know some women have had another experience, but I have not yet felt invalidated because, like, I was a woman when it comes to my rights. Are some people like douchebags? Yes. Men, yes, I'm not negating that, but I'm talking about, like, me feeling like I cannot operate to the level that I need to in this society because I'm a woman. Now, whether or not you or someone or whoever has dealt with that, I'm not going to take away from that experience, but I'm talking about, like, as far as functioning in society in America, really think about it, like, is there a law? And I'm not even going to talk about what everyone's talking about with like abortion and stuff like that. I'm talking about you being able to function in your daily life as a woman. And again, I don't want to negate experiences, because there are a lot of toxic workplaces, and there are a lot of toxic family members, and there are a lot of toxic situations. I'm talking about, have you been to, and how about this? I will propose the question, because I am curious, because just because I haven't dealt with something doesn't mean someone else has. Like, have you been denied the right to vote? Have you been denied buying real estate because you're a woman? Have you been denied this or that? I can't take away from anybody's experiences, but I guess what I'm saying is there's no law in place. No, whether there's a douchebag, realtor company, or a douchebag, CEO or something. Yeah, that happens, because this world is evil and they're trash human beings. And unfortunately, we can never escape that. But I'm talking about actual law that is prohibiting a woman from actually doing, from like functioning her daily life. And again, I'm not talking about abortion. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm not talking about that. And I'm not going to talk about that. And I already said that. A lot of people like to use examples like women's sports and stuff. They say that the WNBA women don't get paid as much as NBA players, which is true. But like, I have to ask, and I try to be like a critical and free thinker. Like, I try to, I ask myself, or at least I try to, like, is this really about like men versus women, or the fact that nobody watches the WNBA, so the money just isn't coming in? Like, I have to be honest and say that I don't watch. I really don't watch the NBA either, but like, I could care less about the WNBA as far as like entertainment and like wanting to watch it. I'm being honest, and I know a lot of people out there will say the same thing. Don't lie, don't act like you watch it every night. But like, I don't know. Like, can I say that it's because they're just women? Like, I don't even care about sports, but like, I think, the NBA games, from what people have told me, because like I haven't watched, like I legit have not watched basketball in years, but they say like it's more entertaining. And, but what's interesting is that all these like modern day feminists, y'all don't even show up for the WNBA or other women's sports. Well, most, for the WNBA in particular, like y'all cry about this, but you don't even show up. Where are all the feminists at? Because y'all are not in the stands. Y'all are not supporting these women. It's because y'all don't want to watch it either. And like, again, I'm not even like, I'm not trying to hate on the WNBA. Those women are awesome. And, I hope that they're doing what they love. And, when it comes to pay, like if we could wave a wand and they get paid the same, I'm here for it. I'm not against it. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that, is it really like a men and women issue? Or is it just that it's not bringing in the money because nobody watches it? So if no money is coming in, they're not going to pay. Now, whether or not that's right or not, as far as like the CEOs making that decision of like, no one's watching it, there's no money coming in, so that therefore we don't have the money to pay. I don't know if that's a men and women issue. I don't know if that's an equality issue, but these are like the questions that I have. But then again, the modern day feminists, like y'all are not showing up for them either. So how can you guys like gripe and complain about this? Maybe it's just because they're not getting the profit. Now, what sport you can kind of talk about is like tennis. Because I thought about it, and I'm like, what's another sport where like a lot of people watch and a lot of people like to watch women? And that's tennis. I looked up some statistics, and, women's tennis matches, they tend to have more viewership. However, they tend to get like less coverage, and they end up making like slightly less than men. And, okay, if that, that's something I understand you could advocate for. You could say, well, everyone's watching it, but they're not getting coverage. So maybe that's why the profit, they're not getting paid as much. I think I saw that they're getting like 30% less or something. I'd have to look back up. It wasn't like a huge, change in pay. But, I think I saw a figure where it's like if one is getting paid $88,000, then one's getting paid, then women are getting paid $80,000 or something like that. So obviously, yes, that money matters, but I can understand why someone want to advocate for that, because they say, yes, like most people are when they're tuning into tennis, they're watching women's tennis. So why can't Women make either the same amount or more than men. And the thing is that like, equal pay for things like this, I understand that 110%. And like, you know what? I'm sure that there are like a certain group of feminists or whatever they want to call themselves that are probably advocating for this. And I applaud them, and I think that that's great. Pay equality and, fighting for things like that. It should be talked about, and at least it should be questioned at least. So, and then, be able to look at the statistics and look at what's right and wrong and stuff. But like, the media doesn't show them. They don't shine a light on these type of feminists to say, hey, more people are watching women's tennis, so why do they get paid less? When was the last time you heard somebody like talking about that in the media? No, the media, they shine a light on something completely different. Taking a turn from sports, that quote that I mentioned, moments ago about, the so-called picture of what like a true feminist or true woman or whatever should be. I also hear about women wanting to be the boss, yet somehow they like have to put a man down in the process. And that's kind of like what that quote was saying that I mentioned earlier. Or they say that they just like, oh, well, I don't need a man. And no, I'm not someone that is saying that women have to be in relationships. Like, that's not what I mean. What I'm saying is that a lot of modern day feminists, they use hateful rhetoric towards men to lift themselves up. And then what's worse is that you also have these same feminists tearing down other women. They will literally tear down each other for no reason. Like, for no reason, going head to head on Twitter, going head to head on social media, in the public, tearing each other down. But then, and I'm talking about these celebrities, and then they'll call themselves feminists, but it's like, you just tore her down for nothing. I don't understand. And it's like, you think about different, walks of life that women tend to take, whether they want to pursue academics, or they want to become mothers, or the homemakers, or homesteaders, or they want to become that CEO. In today's society, it's like, if you want to be a stay-at-home mom and take care of the kids, then you're not woman forward, you're not feminist, you're not of the 21st century, you're giving the man in the house all the power. But again, like, if you and your husband have that type of relationship where he is considered the man of the house, and that's what you two have consensually agreed on, why do you have to be accused of not being women forward? Why do people have an opinion on how like these marriages run if people are happy in their marriage? And I think this is why like a lot of people like myself have like a problem with modern day feminism, because there's so much invalidation of different types of women in different walks of life, and it just isn't fair. And it's also just lost its original meaning and purpose, and what the early modern day feminists, they were just trying to obtain, equality of the sexes. I see it all the time. There'll be a single mom, boasting somewhere, whether social media or in person, about how she's a feminist, she's got children, and she doesn't need the father around. Now, I mean, obviously, if he's a deadbeat, like, I understand why you may not want him around, okay? But the truth is that children need both parents. I don't care what you say. Children need the balance and the qualities of a mother and a father. That's just my opinion. They need both their parents there. That's just my opinion, right? Like, and it's hard because there will be those single moms that, because they feel that way or they have an opinion, then they won't let the father around to see the child. And maybe he is doing his best. Now, again, I said, if he's a deadbeat and he's trash, I understand, you may not want that toxicity around your child, but some of these men are really out here trying. They just don't want to be in relationships with the women. Like, and it shouldn't be anti-feminist to say that, like, a kid should be able to have both of their parents around, if applicable, of course. Fathers matter just as much as mothers do. Why can't we applaud women that take different walks of life that may be traditional? And I kind of talked about this in my It's Okay to Be Old-Fashioned podcast. Go check it out. Go listen to it real quick after this. Why can't we applaud women that want to stay home and take care of their children just as much as we applaud women who want to start their own business? Why can't we applaud women that choose to allow their husband to take the lead in their relationship because that's what they believe, that's what's best for them, as much as we applaud a woman for leaving a toxic or abusive relationship? The modern day feminist movement, it seems to be like tainted with things that have nothing to do with equality of the sexes, that can actually better women or give them the resources they need to be successful and to, go out into the world and do the things that they need to do. Now, of course, again, I'm sure there are, some genuine feminists out there that stick to the original point and purpose, that are out there following, fighting for real equality. But it's unfortunate that the media doesn't cover it. But you know what they do cover? I'm sure you may have heard of the Free the Nipple campaign. I was doing research on like modern day feminist movement and like what are these modern day feminists? What are things that they've advocated for? Because of course, like I said, I want to make sure I'm going in this with my facts. Free the Nipple campaign. So, if you haven't heard of it, it's exactly what it sounds like. So, this information I'm about to mention, I got it from this article on this website called Al Jazeera. It was like some, page with information and research. I can't think right now. But anyway, it said that the term, Free the Nipple, started by a filmmaker named Alina Esco in 2012. She was highlighting the fact that in public, women are not afforded the same right as men to be topless. Okay, hold on a second. How did we go to fighting for the right to vote, the right to own property, the right to our own bank accounts, to wanting to walk around topless? Like, who was suffering so bad that we just got to make that happen? Do you hear it? Like when you say it, when I say it out loud, like it sounds crazy. This is what I'm talking about, though. This is the problem with some of the modern feminists of our society. They pushing for things that like don't actually liberate women. Now, there may be some women out there that desire to walk outside topless, okay, or at the beach or at the pool, hot tub. And they want to do that for whatever reason, okay? But you know what? I'm just going to go out on a limb and say this. I doubt that that's like the majority of women. But like who even like really cares? Like you are not oppressed because you can't walk around topless, okay? I can tell you as a woman, I do not feel oppressed because I can't walk around topless. I don't want to walk around topless. I also just want to briefly mention another phrase that is super prominent with the modern day feminist movement, my body, my choice. We all know this is closely linked to abortion, which I just mentioned previously that I'm just not going to be unpacking that today. Sorry, not sorry. It's just not something I'm interested in unpacking. I don't like to be too controversial, so I'm just not going to be unpacking that today. Sorry. Anyway, I just find it interesting that the same feminists that yell my body, my choice, they don't scream it when it comes to women getting educated about their bodies and learning about their cycles. And it's interesting because the early feminists, they were advocating for women's education. This type of education, like I sincerely wish that I had the finances and resources, because I would totally fight for young women to have the education about learning about their cycles and such. Now I know there are many women out there with like different conditions, that like don't allow them, to get their cycle every month and things of that nature. And I totally understand that. I have women in my family. I have women that I know, friends and such, that have these conditions. So like I completely understand that is a very, very real thing. But I'm more so talking about just getting the education that young women should be receiving when it comes to this stuff. But feminists, these modern day feminists will say, well, no, natural family planning or understanding your menstrual cycle, it isn't real, and, things of that nature, which is just a lie. And like, not to be TMI, I mentioned on like a previous podcast that I wait until marriage. I've never been on birth control. I have a very regular cycle, and I've only been pregnant once, and it was intentional. Now, like, I'm not trying to like make an example out of myself, because every woman has a different body, and like just when it comes to how her body reacts to different things, different cycles and stuff. But like, I chose to get educated, and I learned about my cycle. I learned about my body, and I made the choice, along with my husband, to do what was right and necessary for us to prevent pregnancy and allow pregnancy when the time was right. Because the truth is that if you have a regular cycle, you can there's not many days in the month you can actually get pregnant. I think it's like 6 or 7 or maybe 8 or something like that, where you can actually get pregnant. But where's this information? Like, where is this education? Why isn't it being taught in schools? Why aren't the modern day feminists fighting for this to be taught? I'm sorry. And again, like I said, I'm not going to dive into the, abortion rabbit hole, but y'all want to advocate so much for that. But where is this? Where's the education? Because in health class, they didn't teach me about that. They did not. I had to get educated before I got married about my cycle. And again, I know every woman has different things with her body that may not allow her to have a regular cycle and stuff. Like, I get that. I'm not negating that. But you know how many women out there like have a regular cycle, but like just don't understand that, and don't understand that, you can track your cycle. You can know when you're ovulating, and you can do different things. You could take ovulation tests and different stuff to take care of yourself. Why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we doing that? Nope. We don't want to do that. It's like we just want to do free the nipple and all this other stuff. But like, where's like women's education? There are some women out there that don't have that education, that if they did, they would make different decisions, and they would do different things to better themselves. It's like, no, we just got to free the nipple. We hate women who are not boss ladies and they stay at home. They're losers and they don't really love themselves. Like, this is what society perpetuates, and it's not right. And, the truth is, at least in America, we live in a country where we can run for president. We can stay at home. We can buy property. We can teach. We can do all this stuff. Now, yes, there are still things that need to be sorted out, like pay equality, domestic violence and sexual harassment, things in the workplace. Like, I'm not negating none of that stuff. I'm just saying that I don't feel like modern day feminism is actually empowering to women. It hasn't empowered me by any means. If anything, it's just made me feel invalidated as a woman. Because it's like, I am not a man hater. They yell at men and women to fall under whatever they call true feminism, and then it negates any women that think differently or question the ideology or just want to live life differently. And like, this is not what the early day feminists fought for. They fought for equality for all men and women. They wanted women to be successful in the workplace, in businesses, to vote. So, they wanted them to be the best mothers that they could be, to get the education. And if they want to homeschool, great. And, if they want to do this, if they want to, buy real estate or buy land and stuff like that, that's what it was all about. Now, you may be wondering, because, again, I usually don't talk about things like too controversial, why I kind of wanted to talk about this. But the truth is that I wanted to talk about this because I know so many women out there that, don't feel validated due to whatever choices that they've made that they felt were right for them. And society looks down on them. I see it all the time. Like, TikTok has become such a toxic place. And I saw some TikToks going around, just about like, it was like a husband and a wife. And, the wife was, talking about how she submits to her husband because of, what she believes in the Bible. And again, that's like her beliefs and stuff. And like, she just gets torn apart. And it's like, why are we worried about what other people are doing in their marriage? Like, they're happy. So like, get over it. You know what I'm saying? But like, this is the point that like, I'm trying to make. And it's like society makes it seem like if you're not grinding hard and you're not making your own means and you don't have that separate bank account, like why are you sharing it with your husband and all this type of stuff? Then you're of the old age, you're living, pre women's rights. And, I just think that this type of, rhetoric and these type of ideologies can be very harmful to women. And I don't think it's fair. You could be either or. If you want to be a boss lady and be a CEO, fantastic. If you don't, cool. And I think that that is what needs to be perpetuated. As a Christian, we have different desires than, what the world thinks about women. Everyone knows the Proverbs 31 woman. And I'm just going to read, if that's okay with you. Well, thank you for listening. But I'm going to read Proverbs 31 verses 10 to 19. It says, "A wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it's still dark. She provides food for her family and portions for her servant girls. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand, she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchant with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive. I'm actually going to go on to verse 31. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the reward she has earned, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. I think that that's beautiful. And, that text and that scripture I feel like is used a lot, but I just feel like it's like when I hear that and when I read that, like that's what feminism should be. Like you heard it. She takes care of her family, but she owns a business. She works hard, but her husband loves her and praises her and gives her the respect she deserves. In my opinion, this should be what modern day feminism is. A woman can choose to take care of her family, but she can run her own business. She can do this and she can do that. She can be courageous and she can have her moments. And she can laugh when the time is right. And I know everyone who is listening may not be a believer, but like, why can't we teach our young women to be amazing wives, to be lovers of their husbands, to be strong and taking care of their household, to go after their aspirations, their dreams, their desires, to get educated in every aspect, including their bodies and academics, to not have fear, to not back down from anyone that tries to take away her value, to help other women, to encourage them no matter what walk of life they choose. To start that business, to become that teacher, to become that lawyer, whatever they're doing, be passionate about it, to speak when necessary and listen when the time is right. To not hate men, but to value men in the same way and purpose that women have value, men do as well. And I wish, again, that this is what modern day feminism looked like, because there's so many young women out there that are like, look, I have different desires. I want to do this. I want to live this way, and I just feel like modern day feminism is going so far into just like this unknown direction that it's invalidating a lot of women for their own choices, when really we just want, again, we want the equality, but we have that in so many avenues now. So now we just want to further embrace the equality. We're not trying to hate men or take away from men or anything of that nature. It's just so sad to see like young women being invalidated because of their decisions and being discouraged for whatever they've chosen to do. And I just don't think that it's right. And that's why I wanted to talk about it. And that's why I said, I didn't want to, dive too much into, certain topics like abortion right now, because that's not the focal point of this podcast. And this is more about, I want women to feel empowered. I think that it is so important, especially in today's society, where we do have social media and we do have all these things in our face that are here to invalidate us. And then you have these different modern day feminists that, if we don't agree with them or if we think a certain way, we're also being invalidated. And I just want to encourage any women out there listening that, like, whatever path that you've chosen in life, as long as, of course, you're happy and you're healthy and you're not doing anything illegal or, then it's okay. And, all this, I hate to say it, but like extremist stuff, like just don't let it get to you. You want to be a lawyer? Go be a freaking lawyer and be amazing at it. You want to be a stay-at-home mom? Be a stay-at-home mom. You don't want to go out and party and you don't want to go out and do this stuff and you don't want to be, liberated and all this type of stuff that they say, then don't. Do you. Do you and be encouraged. I just wish more women knew that. Because I could see, like I said, I get on social media and I just see it all over the place. And then you have these other women feeling like they need to do stuff. Maybe they are in a season where they're at home taking care of the kids, but they're being pressured to, from society to, oh, well, she needs to start a business while she's at home. Because her man just can't be the only one working. And it's pressures like these that are just unfair. And, maybe you do want to do that and that's fine, but maybe you're in a different season. I don't know. I think all women should just be encouraged to be who they are. And, of course, like I said, there are certain issues that, still are being dealt with in society, like certain pay gaps and stuff like that. And I'm not here to like negate any of this stuff, because this stuff is very real. Sexual harassment in the workplace, different invalidations and stuff. I understand that aspect, but this is more so like, what are we actually fighting for? When I hear all this other stuff like free the nipple and all type of stuff, I'm like, that type of stuff is overshadowing what really matters. Like, we can fight for the pay and we can fight for, just whatever is going on, we can fight for that stuff. Sure. You know what I mean? But like when you come out with all this other stuff and you're just being a man hater, like no one is being united, and men and women should be united, period. Okay. Men and women should be united, and that's just the truth. But thank you so much for tuning in to this slightly controversial podcast. I actually don't think it was that bad. I thought I was going to get more controversial, but I don't think it's that bad. I just think that I want women to feel valid. And if we're going to be, feminists, then I think that I'm only going to resonate with early feminism, like actual different things. Like, I want women to get educated. I want women to be able to buy property, to be able to get the jobs they want. Like, that's the type of stuff that, if I were to get into activism, like I said, I would want to help women get educated on, when it comes to their bodies and things like that, to help women. That's what I would want to do. And, maybe, you can think about, what matters to you when it comes to women and women being able to, have the ability to obtain different things in society. But again, I don't want to ramble too much because maybe I'll end up getting controversial, but I don't want to do that. But thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I think I've got the audio fixed. I'm going to double check it and make sure, but I will post an update on the Instagram page. So please be sure to follow the Instagram page at My So-Called Thoughts Pod. And of course, subscribe, leave a like, comment, review, anything on your platform of choice: YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to try to not be controversial next week. New episodes every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Thank you guys so much. And quick little prayer. I just want to say a prayer for all the women out there, that, wherever you are in your life, I just pray that you feel validated. And I also pray you get involved with your community. Like, if you see something wrong, then go after it. Be encouraged and be validated in who you are, in Jesus' name. But again, I just want to say this side tangent. Get involved. But let's be realistic. What are real issues? And like I said, I think that education about women's bodies is a real issue. And I think that it's definitely something that needs to be talked about more. Let's focus on stuff like that so that we can better ourselves as women, and we can grow, and we can become more intelligent, and, and as far as understanding different things, that's what I think that we should focus on. And also, I just want to add to, I'm an American, so this totally applies to America. I'm sure other countries are different. So I just wanted to add that in there. But thank you so much for listening today. I hope you're well wherever you are. And once again, this is Sunray. I'm out. Peace.